We're joined in studio by Simon Monk. He is the business development manager for Hyposwiss Private Bank, the branch here in Israel. Simon, thanks for joining us. So today we are seeing the stock market in New York dropping over 200 points on that Apple warning. Of course, Israel's markets are also vulnerable to those developments abroad. So how concerned, let's still start with that, should investors be now that the coronavirus is starting to impact on the markets?
I think one has to take a longer-term view as an investor, putting aside, obviously, the tragic human consequences. From the investment perspective, we've seen in the past that there have been these crises from time to time, and there's normally quite a savage reaction, and then the markets have normally bounced back within a relatively short space of time, provided that the problem was contained. And we're seeing now a situation which is mirrors that we happened in the past, although the falls have not been as dramatic. You can say 200 points, but the relative percentage drops. Again, if you look at the markets going back from a very high base, so the underlying financials have been very strong. You've got low inflation, low unemployment, low interest rates. The central banks are supporting the money supply because of that low interest rates, and therefore you haven't had this sort of mass panic in the markets. That's not to say that things can't get worse. If it is contained within a 2 to 3 month period, I think you'll see a rapid rebound in business confidence. But yes, there is a potential chance if things aren't contained, then the situation can get far more dangerous. Let's talk about a business
here in Israel that's already being affected, and it can't always bounce back that quickly. That is tourism. We heard the Transportation Minister, Bezalel Smotrich, already saying El Al is being affected by it. Of course, in Israel, we don't even have any cases here. But again, how vulnerable is Israel, so especially its tourism business, on just that people are scared to travel now?
I think that's really what's happened. As you say, there's no coronavirus cases here, but people are cancelling flights full stop. So that we are hearing a lot of cancellations in the hotel sector from people coming from abroad who just don't want to go near an airport and don't want to get on a plane. I was in London recently, and when you're in the terminal and everyone's wearing a mask, you know, that is pretty off-putting, even though you're nowhere near China, you know, in London airport. But we're seeing now a consequent knock-on effect that the cancellations are going to rise. People do not want to travel. And again, 2 or 3 months, I think there will be a bounce back. But the longer it goes on, you will see airline losses rise dramatically because of this loss of revenue. El Al has already cancelled its flights, or most of the flights to the Far East. But if you're talking now a bunch of Europeans who would come for Pesach, which is obviously the nearest festival that we're going to get, where it is normally, for Passover, there's normally peak travel into the country. We're seeing a lot of people cancelling.
A lot of people even from Europe cancelling. Now, and of course, we're seeing some Asian airlines also cancelling into Israel. In fact, there has been talk that Israel could face retaliation from East Asian nations because they move so quickly to ban entry to citizens and travelers from there. Here's what the Foreign Ministry's director of the Northeast Asia Department, Amir Lati, said earlier on our Daily Dose show.
I think these countries do understand, again, that it's not geared toward their citizens. It's not a total block from citizens of Thailand to come here. They can come here after they spend 14 days in another country. They understand, and if they don't understand, this is our mission to carry this message to them. It's a foreign ministries in order for them to understand that it's a temporary thing in order to protect the well-being of the Israeli citizens.
So, I mean, Israel's import and export from East Asia, from China or other countries, that has become so important here in recent years. What about the impact on that sector?
I think here you're looking at the impact of the enormous quantity of goods that are manufactured in the Far East and are imported to Israel, whether indirectly or directly. A lot of these suppliers here hold considerable stocks of these products, so it's not like they're going to run out tomorrow morning of phone components or something of this nature. But again, clearly, if you have a situation where in China you have 11 million people or maybe more under effective lockdown in their homes, they're not in the factory producing. So the longer they're not in the factory producing, less goods being produced, gradually stocks will wear down. So that the impact, again, the longer it goes on, the worse it gets. The quicker it's contained, the shorter the effects of the economic impacts of those sort of situations, which we could potentially see something serious. I'm optimistic. I hope that there will be a resolution, you know, sooner rather than later. But clearly, if there isn't, again, stocks start running low. Various products, pharmaceutical companies, and what have you, if they import certain things, again, the longer it goes on that there's less manufacturing, stocks can dwindle.
Right, but still, you keep saying that in if this thing is contained, say, within a few months. But generally, let's just look ahead now to what's going to happen in the next few months. We are going to start seeing residue, even when China starts to recover. Just to resume that, it's going to take some toll on the Israeli economy.
I'm not 100% convinced it will if it is contained shortly, because stock markets by definition tend to rebound relatively fast because there's an anticipation that things will get better. The markets often anticipate what is going to happen or build into what is going to happen. But clearly, as I said, the longer it goes on, you have a potential situation whereby you have a certain shortage of products, which sounds incredible in our day and age, but when you realize that so much is imported, that has the knock-on effect if it is allowed to, if it is continued, not allowed to continue, if it does continue and they can't contain it.
And what about Israel's exports to these East Asian markets? Is there a lingering effect maybe of ill will, considering what the steps that Israel has taken, really taking the lead among quicker than some of the other countries to ban both citizens and travelers from some of those East Asian nations?
Well, I think we're verging more into the political realm than the economic realm. I don't believe, again, that they will have a long-term diplomatic impact, I hope not, on the economy from those situations that were taken, because many countries around the world, as they said before, are taking those steps to virtually quarantine people who are arriving from other countries. And that you were first or last, I'm not sure that this will be long remembered if that situation is contained and is a relatively short period. But clearly there can always be a diplomatic flare-up. Occasionally it can happen, and you have certain countries that decide to have a slowdown on Israeli exports or insist on visas. Perhaps.
Political, but there has been concern in Israel that in recent years it's opened itself so much to Chinese investors, for example, and Chinese investment. This is something that could be used against people who have made that argument about the increasing impact of China in the Israeli economy.
I don't think in this day and age one can afford to be an island. I think that the very nature of Israeli business, whereby we have to export. We have a small domestic market, 9 million people. We are international by vocation and international by need. And therefore, I don't think that there can afford to be a sort of closure of markets, a closure of relations with people that we need to sell to. Again, I think this is a situation which normally bounces back. The Chinese particularly take a long-term view. They're not people who take a short-term view. They take a long-term view. And again, I think that over time these situations can be reinforced and recovered from. But I'm not to say that it's going to be easy. You know, there are hiccups, and I think the Israeli economy has weathered. If you look at the fundamentals of the Israeli economy, we have weathered far worse storms in the past.
Well, let's see. We don't know the magnitude of this storm yet. Simon Monk, thanks for joining us on The Rundown.